Big topic today, but won't take long to talk about. With GDC right around the corner, I'm reminded of many years ago when I was a graduate student, and I can't recall if it was at E3 or GDC, but I saw one of my grad classmates, and he had mentioned that he just didn't feel good about the things he was seeing at this big industry conference in terms of the direction games had gone. And the point I made to him, which is the point I want to make today, is that games are not the game industry. That games are so much more broad, so much richer, so much more diverse, so much more varied in scale and type and kind and audience than what necessarily is at any given time under the spotlight of the main business of making games. That you can like music and not necessarily care for pop music. That you can like theater and not necessarily care for Broadway. That it's entirely okay, and I think important even, to accept that you can like digital games and game making and the craft that goes into making them without necessarily having to see that as one and the same as an industry that has earned itself a fairly bad reputation for its treatment of workers, for its level of stability, for its ethical choices, whether in terms of content or pricing or however they go about doing the things that help those businesses sustain. That's its own separate ball of wax from liking games. This is part of why, in the approaches I've always taught through my video courses on Udemy, through Gamketo Club, through the different college clubs I started, has really always been about, let's focus on building games that we want to build because we want those games to exist and we want to be involved in making games. For some people, that does translate into they're building a resume portfolio towards industry gigs as a freelance or full-time thing. But for the most part, for a lot of people, that is the end in itself. To be making games. Enjoying making games. Loving making games. And that is completely not the same thing as whatever's going on at GDC and E3. There's a little bit of overlap. Certainly there are people who care about game making who find that those kinds of events or conferences can be useful in their pathway towards either connecting with other people who also care about making games. But at the end of the day, it's not the kind of games that are going to be given massive booth space or can afford to get in the funding to have massive booth space. It's not necessarily the kind of projects that will be showcased, even at something like, and this I say as someone who's been involved with organizing for years, Indiecade has some years had a big old booth at E3 or booths perhaps at PAX or other situations where some kind of games get highlighted through Indiecade. And if you'd like to submit your game through Indiecade, I think submissions are still open. That'd be cool to do. But that's still, as an arts community, as a festival, as a celebration of media, it's a different thing than games and game making. There's a particular kind of style and purpose to what's highlighted that way, and it's maybe worth applying if it interests you, but at the same time, just because something wasn't accepted into IGF at GDC or Siege or Indiecade or whatever other thing doesn't delegitimize it. It just says that it wasn't a fit for what that particular culture, that particular structure, that particular event is about spotlighting. The thing can still exist just fine. Right? So again, so as much as we can make music, we can paint, we can dance, we can draw, we can play sports, we can do all of these things entirely separate from the realm in which they are a professional enterprise. Right? There's a lot of messed up things I've heard about FIFA. You don't hold that against soccer. You hold that against FIFA. So, just want to make the same point about game development, that it's okay to have it be something you enjoy and prefer to keep separate from industry things. Can be if that's where you want to go with it. Some people find that's a perfectly happy path that they take. For others, it's not a fit. But I think sometimes what happens is there's this negative fallout from people who try game industry things, whether it's an event, a job, half the career path, years, whatever it might be, related degrees, feel burned by the industry, and then translate that frustration to the medium of games or to the creative acts and technical challenges and social organizational just sort of complications around creating those artifacts when, again, those are separate things. They can be. You can choose to make them the same in your life. You can choose to have them separated. There are pros and cons to either way. But it's not delegitimizing. It's not less valid. Right? People out there playing, again, to go back to soccer and FIFA, people out there just playing soccer are every bit as much playing soccer if they're not doing it in a stadium with people who are buying tickets to see it. That's all there is for today. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'll have another video for y'all soon.